This is in my family, four generation. I'm four generation.
Wow.
My grandfather, father, and my great-grandfather.
When we were in Podgorica, we saw a quote painted on a wall that said, "If an artist falls in love with you, you will live forever." This quote came full circle when we met a copper artist in Sarajevo who through 4 generations of his family has continued an old tradition of making copper items by hand. Through one period of this family's generation, the copper art told a sad story. But now they tell a story of perseverance and the things that have shaped their culture. The things that have shaped the culture of Sarajevo. The city of Sarajevo has vibes like we have not yet seen in the Balkans. It's hard to explain. You need to experience it. There's both old and new. It's a huge city, not just in population, but in size, which allowed the city to hold the Winter Olympics in 1984. This city has so much history, so let's start in the center of the old city, the Baščaršija Square.
We start off at the fountain, famous for tourists getting an up-close and personal encounter with what seems to be all of the pigeons in the area. And these pigeons are no joke. There's tons of them flying around and walking around, and they fly ridiculously low, so you always have to duck and dodge these pigeons. This fountain's name comes from the word road, which symbolizes the road that the water takes from its source to the fountain, or from the charitable act or road of people getting water from the fountain to the people who needed it the most. And this comes from a time where people would man the fountain, get the water out, only to give it to people who were thirsty, the people who were truly in need. The fountain is one of the main symbols of this area, but it's just a small part of the city of Sarajevo. This area was one of the main marketplaces back in the Ottoman Empire. Its official name, Baščaršija, actually means main market. As you go around Sarajevo, you see one man's name a lot, Gazi Husrev-beg. And he is so important because his mother was a daughter of a sultan, and he himself was an Ottoman governor, and he had such a big impact on this city. He created most of this old town area by being the one to fund and lead the construction on a clock tower, mosque, library, schools, and so much more. Everything all in this area, so it's impressive to see from building to building the impact that he had. Here we have the Gazi Husrev-beg Madrasa, one of the schools built by that man, but this is the oldest of the institutions in all of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And next to it we also have a museum and his library. Here we have the clock tower, or Saat Kula, as you may remember from our Podgorica video. This clock drives 4 clock faces, each one pointing towards a different side of the world. And this clock is set to lunar time, which means that a day ends at the moment of the astronomical sunset, and that, according to the calendar, a new day begins at that very moment. Considering the length of a day constantly changes, including the time of sunset, this clock has to be adjusted regularly. The clock tower is set to lunar time, which will help guide Muslim prayer times. But this does not happen automatically. This has to be manually updated. And the man who updated this clock, as well as the instruments he needed to keep it up to date, were inside of this building. This building today is a tourist information center, but at that time is where this man and his instruments used to reside. The cool thing is that he had to manually set it by climbing up 76 steps to the top. Another endowment from Gazi Husrev-beg is this Bezistan, which is this huge indoor shopping area. It's this big stone building with huge vaulted ceilings and about 70 shops inside. This place is huge, like any kind of indoor flea market, but instead of just a bunch of random tents, it's made out of all stone. and it looks gorgeous inside.
We've stopped into a restaurant called Kolo Barahan, and they have a bunch of traditional Bosnian food here, and we today have some soups because it's very cold outside. We've got a bay soup, which is like chicken and okra, so similar to like a chicken noodle soup. And then we have the Sarajevo soup, which is similar to like a beef stew. So there's meat and some vegetables in that one, and both are absolutely delicious. We also ordered the city shabab, a Bosnian dish filled with mixed meats similar to a beef stew. And these were perfect dishes to warm our bodies before heading back out into the cold to check out a very historically significant part of the city. There's a reason it's so cold, because now it's snowing!
Yeah, it's snowing.
Oh, wow, it's snowing.
It was on June 28, 1914, that the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife Sofia were assassinated here in Sarajevo, close to the Latin Bridge. But Franz Ferdinand was not always the likely heir to the throne. You see, the emperor at the time was Karl Joseph, and he had a son, Rudolf. He also had a brother, Karl Ludwig, who was the dad of Franz Ferdinand. But after Rudolf took his own life and Karl Ludwig passed on the opportunity, this left Franz Ferdinand as the heir to the throne. So back to June 28, 1914. It was on this day that Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sofia were in an open car as part of a motorcade going down the streets here in Sarajevo, close to the Latin Bridge. When they went down the first time, Bosnian Serb Kabrinovic threw a grenade towards the car, but it bounced off the car and hit the car behind them, thus giving the car time to speed off. After going down the street and taking a rest or a break, they got back in the car. But after getting back in the car, no one told the driver to take a different route, thus giving the assassins a second opportunity. This time it was Bosnian Serb Gabriel Princip who was able to shoot and kill Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sofia at point blank range. This is the event that was a launching pad for World War I, a war that killed 20 million people and brought an end to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. There's tons of history in the city of Sarajevo, and a lot of that history is inside of museums. The cool thing is that there's a 5-museum kind of hopper pass that you can get, which you don't have to get in advance, you can get at one of the museums itself. So we started off at the Despic House, I think that's how you say it, really close to the Latin Bridge, and we got our tickets right when we got here. And this is pretty cool because this shows a wealthy Serb family, and this is a good size house. And he was apparently, we were told, involved with religion and politics and business. So he had a lot of money and he was very important. So we're gonna tour around and see what it was like for a wealthy family in 19th century Sarajevo. They even had Bosnian coffee back then, obviously, with all their copper works. Why is this child so sad?
Oh, look at his eyes.
He doesn't want an apple. That's how I feel. I just want chocolate cake.
Oh, you gotta eat your fruits.
I know it's kind of hard to see, but here we have a piano in their house, which is an obvious indicator of the wealth that the family had.
Oh, fireplace.
Yeah, fireplace looks cool. Here we are at the Museum of the Jews of Bosnia and Herzegovina. This was the oldest synagogue in Sarajevo and is now a museum. This is part of that museum pass that we got before, but make sure that you hold onto your ticket because they do not honor the honor system.
stuff in the Bible. Look, they're using it there. We've seen the historical Husrev-beg Mosque and the oldest synagogue in Sarajevo, but those are not the only two religious structures in the city. There are many. Some people have referred to Sarajevo as the European Jerusalem due to the many religions here. From our experience, they all currently seem to be coexisting in peace. There are also Orthodox churches and Catholic churches to go along with the mosques and synagogues. You can hear the calls to prayer and the church bells at the same time. No matter what you believe in, there are so many beautiful places to worship in Sarajevo. Look at all that snow on top of the mountains, how pretty. Yesterday was absolutely freezing. It was too cold for our taste. We're Floridians and we are not used to the cold or the snow, so we went ahead and just ended the day, and today is a new day and we hope to explore a lot more because it is probably like 10-15 degrees warmer and a lot sunnier today. We are walking through the old part of Sarajevo, and this is kind of like a little alley where there's tons and tons of things made out of copper.
But my last project, it's in my home, in the wall. But I have a lot of here. Plate. Because one plate I make 4 generations in plate. So my grandfather, great-grandfather, and myself. And it's amazing work. I have one picture in my phone. Now it's in my wall. This one here.
Oh wow.
This one is from my father. This one is from my grandfather. You have something here, mixed me and my grandfather. This heart you have in this plate, it's from father. It's a gold plate, it is not for sale, it's remember for him.
Wow. Meeting the locals always gives us a different perspective to each city we visit. After meeting this gentleman who's dedicated to continuing his family's tradition of making copper art, it gave us a different insight as we walked through the Veliki Park, which holds the memorials of the Siege of Sarajevo, which was from 1992 to 1995. One of the memorials in this park is a tribute to the children who were killed during the war, some saying at least 1,100 children. And if you look closely, there are names and footprints on the memorial. Another statue depicts a father calling for his son to surrender during the tragic events in the Srebrenica in July 1995. Here, more than 8,000 Bosniak Muslim men and boys were killed. We couldn't help but think of the copper artist as we walked through the park. This gentleman would have been 12 years old at the time of the siege. He could have been one of these many children who lost their lives. But he wasn't, and now he works his hands daily, not taking a moment for granted, not wasting the opportunity he has to carry on his family's legacy. He's not wasting the skills passed on from his father and his grandfather. He's using them to this day to create beautiful pieces of art. Another form of art in the city that pays respects to its history are the Sarajevo Roses. These are actual mortar and grenade blasts from the siege. Tens and thousands of grenades fell on the city, leaving many deep marks behind. And the grenades that struck the asphalt left marks that resemble a flower. And after the war, these flowers were filled with red resin as a unique tribute to those who lost their lives during this time. Unfortunately, these are all around the city, on sidewalks, outside of churches, and within some of the outdoor markets. In the center of the city is the eternal flame, which never stops burning, and we feel like it's also representative of the people of Sarajevo. They never stop burning. Through every dark season they fight through, with the hope of seeing the light of a new day, with the hope of seeing a bright future. Which you can see today. These streets are filled with people and shops and cafes and laughter.
Here's a Sarajevo meeting of cultures, where East meets West. The city has a little bit of everything from all around the world. This is a real dividing line after all the fires and destruction, really separating the old town from the new building. And it's really a styles clash as you're standing on this line and you see all the new buildings, and then you cross this line, sand right here, and then here we're in the old town area with all the original traditional type of buildings.
This is a local outdoor market that just has a bunch of fruits and vegetables, and I feel like these are definitely the best spots to get our fruits and vegetables for the week. They just look delicious and fresh, and I love cooking, so I love going to little markets like this. And pomegranates are their fruit that is super popular, and so you'll see pomegranates everywhere and fresh pomegranate juice. And we have yet to try some, but we hear it's really good for you.
So in contrast to the Pijaca Market, which has a lot of fruits and vegetables, this is more meats, and I believe they have a lot of cheese too. So because the meats, I guess, are like smoke, it sounds like we're in a barbecue restaurant. This, I believe, is called just the city market.
Really cool entrance. Probably the best beer in the world. We'll see.
It's the best beer that we've had since leaving America.
We loved finding this little pub that has made a name for itself by reviving the mascot of the 1984 Winter Olympics. It's spots like this that show you that the people of Sarajevo are choosing to remember the good. We've enjoyed our time here in yet another city filled with so much history. Thank you for watching. This is Witty Travels. What could possibly be next?